war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
We, the people, tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. The man is not free unless government is limited. An informed patriotism is what we want. But still watch closely and don't be afraid to see what you see.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
When in hell are all you people going to wake up?
Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report.
Well, hello, America. Welcome to the Monday, September 29th, 2014 edition of Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, the best patriot news on the web. We're broadcasting live from right here at PRN Radio Network, the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program. Hey, Watchmen, I love you guys. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host, Scott Ferrarello, will be here with me in a couple of minutes. No, it's Ferrarello. I just like to mess it up because he gets a kick out of that. Anyhow, he's going to be here in a couple of minutes, and we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you. Our call-in number, if you ever want to use it, is 714-888-7404. And along with our live broadcast, we have two wonderful chat rooms going on, one at Blog Talk Radio and the other right here at PRN Radio Network. Our colleagues and researchers, Lynn, Famous Anna, and AstroTurf, are in the chat rooms putting the links to our sources and documents, as well as other pertinent info into the chats for your convenience. So thank you for that courtesy, ladies. You may run into some of our other colleagues and correspondents in the chats, too, so please say hi when you get over there. Our colleagues are much more than people that just put chats links up. They have a couple of them have their own newspapers. They're the most wonderful researchers I've ever met, and I'm really happy to call them friends. It's been a long week since we last met. There's a whole bunch to catch up on. We have a lot of news to discuss tonight. I'm telling you, we had a lot of news to discuss tonight. But before we begin, I have to do the disclaimer. That's just to let the feds and the NSA and FCC and anybody else who might be interested that whatever we say on this show is solely my responsibility and not that of our gracious sponsors, PRN or the Watchmen of America. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers of the PRN Radio Network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, or anything else for that matter, of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, either in past, present, or even future broadcasts. Okay, well, that's out of the way now. Let's open up Scott's microphone and get this party started. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, how you doing?
How'd I do on your name?
Well, you butchered it, of course, but that's okay.
Yeah, I tore it all off. I know it's Ferrarello.
You just do that on purpose,
I know. Week, but I wanted to bust your chops on it. So, do you have a busy week?
Oh, yeah, the usual, hiding down in a bunker here. There's not a lot going on.
Yeah, well, this place is like a zoo here. Yeah, we got a lot of news tonight, boy. stuff is breaking all over the place. The president is blaming everybody but himself. We got enterovirus, and that's going along with some paralysis that's actually resembling polio. As a matter of fact, JoJo, my former co-host, and she's an RN, you know that, she was one of the first ones to even mention that Coxsackie virus is the same thing that's with the polio virus. 9 kids that they know of that had the enterovirus are now having paralysis. Some of the kids are coming out of it, but some of them are still paralyzed too. Enterovirus is in 40 states too. So they said that there's about 200 that they know of, but this kid's sick left and right. There was one story of a kid up in New Jersey who had died, but he had asthma along with the enterovirus, so they don't know which killed him. But I don't know. This is really, really a serious respiratory illness now. Have you heard any reports? That you know of any friends or anything got sick kids?
No, I haven't heard anything. But there's so many new viruses being released, it's hard to keep track of them all. And most of them,
yeah.
I guarantee they're coming from South America.
Oh, I bet they are.
Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala.
Yeah, that's where these illegal kids are coming from too, the South America and Central America. But it could be related to them. These diseases. Enterovirus. I've heard of it before, and I've heard of kids getting it, but never in the amounts that there are now. And maybe some of it could be from these kids all entering the school systems now. It is September, and schools began about a month ago. So that's when the virus started.
Water faucets at school. Probably
and they
crawl
cough.
Yeah.
Schools are diseased. Children are diseased. They cough and they touch doorknobs and desks and everything else that is there, and then they got all those kids all in one place. So I can see how that happens. But the CDC says that they're currently evaluating whether limb weakness and in some cases paralysis may be associated with this recent enterovirus. It's called D68. And now they're calling it an outbreak. They were just calling it, D68 is making an appearance, but now it's an outbreak. Forbes says that according to the data released by the CDC, 9 children just in Colorado who developed a respiratory virus subsequently developed limb weakness and in some cases varying degrees of paralysis. It says according to recent reports out of Denver, 6 of the 8 children tested positive for enterovirus or rhinovirus, with 4 of the 6 testing positive for enterovirus 68. So the 2 remaining cases are still awaiting final test results, but I'd be willing to bet that those have that enterovirus too. This is getting pretty scary.
What really worries me is they have tested fleas that are testing positive for bubonic plague and stuff like that.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Serious stuff.
Yeah, down in Flagstaff,
if you got a dog or something, and it has fleas, and you have it, let off one of those flea bomb things. These things bite people all the time.
Yeah, they were saying that there's some dogs and some wild animals all dead around that Flagstaff. Some the prairie dogs. They said that they've been getting these fleas with the plague on them, and those too are coming up from Central and South America. But the plague, wow, I thought that was eradicated.
Well, people don't want to know this, but the CDC creates these old viruses back again. They say they're doing it for one reason, but I have my doubts. They recreate these ancient viruses all the time. Look at Ebola. That's a 1,000,000-year-old virus. 1,000,000 years old. It just doesn't resurface by itself.
No, it doesn't, especially in the mutated version that it is. It just keeps evolving. And this Ebola virus isn't the same virus that they were detecting even a year ago over in Africa. As a matter of fact, we have U.S. troops that have just landed there, and I see an article here. It's from the Wall Street Journal. It says that U.S. troops are battling Ebola, and they get off to a slow start in Africa. It's been raining over there, first of all, and they don't have all the supplies that they need, and they can't get them either. They're having a hard time getting people to fly supplies in. This story goes on about, and it tells about how this chopper pilot, he's all decked out in his gloves and his mask and everything, and he just doesn't even want to touch the people that are, trying to unload his plane. He's been spraying chlorine around and everything else. But this article here from the Wall Street Journal says the American military effort against history's deadliest Ebola outbreak is taking shape in West Africa, but concerns are mounting that the pace isn't fast enough to check a virus that is spreading at a terrifying clip. Now, they told everybody that, too. What is 3,000 troops going to do? It says
they're going to shoot those microscopic germs with M16s, of course.
Yeah, well, they're a military fighting force. Well, they're a fighting force. What the hell are they doing over there? It says that they're building these triage tents. It says they've been digging a parking lot in the East African nation of Djibouti this month when they received a call to build the first of a dozen or more tent hospitals that the U.S. intends to construct in that region. The soldiers started by giving the land a downward slope for water runoff to keep out any unwanted reptiles. And it says while the teams level the earth, the superiors hash out the still uncertain details of the American intervention. What do you mean? What does this mean, uncertain? Shouldn't they have an absolute plan? Shouldn't they have everything all laid out and how it's supposed to go? They just drop 3,000 people in there and they're just going to wing it?
Yeah, there was just an update to that story, by the way, on Yahoo. Some general coming out saying they were going to start doing that mission vigorously now. Whatever that means.
Yeah, well...
Like you said, what are they going to do? They're not
Yeah,
doctors.
really, what are they going to do? How are you going to fight a virus? You can't shoot at it.
Oh.
So they're just going to set up these hospitals, and what type of protection are our troops using? And what's the incubation?
How are they going to be decontaminated before coming back to the U.S. and spreading it to their families and who knows where else?
Right. And how are they themselves just going to be protected when you have the doctors who are supposed to know what they're doing that are dropping dead like flies?
Here's another thing. You know that one that was shipped to Nebraska?
Yes.
There was one Ebola patient. He was a doctor, and they sent him to Nebraska Medical Center.
Yeah.
Well, they're releasing him already. And there was a photo of him from one of my friends sent me, and it showed people walking by him, patting him on the back. Like he had the stomach flu or something. And a week earlier, they looked like they were dressing to go into outer space when they were around the guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't trust that. How long does it take to recuperate from that, and what's the incubation period, and how long are you contagious? Are you contagious the whole time? Or
I
don't know enough about this.
They're guessing. They don't know either.
Yeah, well, the guy who ran the hospital, it says here that official at the health ministry, the focal point for the Ebola effort, died of Ebola, and then the other workers that were there abandoned the buildings, which, then they sprayed with chlorine the next morning. But another medical officer placed herself under a 21-day quarantine. And she doesn't even know if she was exposed, and she was under all kinds of protective gear. And the doctor died. Now she figures she's got it too. Now this treatment that they're using, the people from Kentucky, the original ones that they brought back here, the doctor and the nurse, they were part of a company that was trying this experimental drug, and it was made from tobacco leaf, of all things. And they were having success in treating it, and some people had recovered. So then once the people recovered, they were using their blood to transfuse into the currently sick patients. That's what the doctor got. He said that remember the story that he had given the last dose of the serum to the nurse, but he had taken blood from one of the kids that had survived it. I guess that blood from survivors is on the black market going for big bucks, too. I saw another story about two women. One was an older woman and one was a young woman, and they were declared dead, and they were getting ready to bury them, and the two of them rose from the dead. So obviously they had recovered, but now they're being treated like ghosts, and people are running away from them and stuff.
Well, that's why we have an embalming process in the U.S., so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, really.
I mean, over there, they don't. They just bury you as is, and then pretty soon it's dawn of the dead, for real.
Yeah, really. Well, they had declared these two women dead, but they miraculously survived, so now they're being treated as ghosts, and people are running from them. Now, these people over in, Sierra Leone, they had the whole city locked down.
2 million people quarantined, and the government is going door to door, hunting them down like felons.
Yeah, and if they even have a
martial law.
Yeah, well, if they even have a sniffle, they're throwing them in a pile with people who are suspected of having Ebola. So even if you're not sick, you're going to get sick. It's the way that they're doing it. I don't know how this is going to work, but it's only a matter of time before it gets here. It's already here. Remember, last week we talked about the ship that had come into New Orleans, and that ended up being malaria. But, they didn't handle that very well, did they? They let that ship go up to Mississippi.
I'm sure Obamacare doesn't cover it, so.
No. Excuse me.
He's got a fever.
I have a bit of a cough here. I'm trying to shake this summer cold, so please excuse me if I have to take little breaks here. You heard about Ferguson over the weekend? On Saturday night, a cop got... Yeah, we were watching the live streams, and it was crazy. But a cop had got shot in the arm. They were checking out a suspicious person behind one of the stores, and the cop went to check it out, and two people ran. So I guess he ran after them. One of them turned around with a gun and shot at him. Put his arm up to block his face, of course, and his head, and he got shot in the arm. They never did find that suspect. But last night there was more, too. What happened was sometime during the week, somebody poured gas on a makeshift memorial that was sitting there for that kid, Mike Brown, and it just burnt down. I mean, you pour an accelerant on it, there's no way for the teddy bears and whatever else was left there to survive. So nobody ever said who set that on fire. But things have been out of control since then. But I'm wondering if that wasn't a setup, because Obama had to have something to say at the UN, and he pulled Ferguson out of his rear end as a reason that America sucks. So,
like he needs another reason to trash America.
Yeah, he's always
seems to be the only thing he's good at.
Yeah, well, last night 8 people were arrested outside of the Ferguson Missouri Police Department. They were throwing rocks and bottles and bricks and everything else that they could get their hands on. So they arrested 8 people, and then they just let them go, too, with a notice to appear. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but that's been ongoing. And, of course, they had to accelerate it. That was dying down. It was waning. And, all the race pimps had to bring it all up again, because that's what Obama was going to use at the UN, and, of course, they couldn't have it all quiet down. But now these people are falling for it again. Over in Memphis, a whole bunch of teenagers mobbed. They come out of a game or a school or something, and they started mobbing cars, and they beat up some guy. They beat up some young kid. There was, blood everywhere, and they said that there was about 100 kids. This woman says all of a sudden about 20 kids were on top of her car with about 40 more kids around the car, and they were kicking and stomping and jumping. She said if she had had a gun, there would have been dead kids all over the place. So I don't know, but she was scared to death. And she said another man was attacked in his car after honking a horn at the teenagers. So they used bricks on his car and stomped him. This woman, her name is Morning, she reported seeing teenagers beat an elderly man and another teenager. She said, I actually looked at the child. His face was bleeding. They had beat him. So she was asked, did any police lay down the law? And they said, well, not exactly. They reported that 2 17-year-olds were given juvenile summons and sent home. So out of 100 kids, you give out 2 juvenile summonses?
What's the deterrent?
Yeah,
What's the deterrent when you just slap their wrist and let them go?
Yeah, well, out of 100, you grab up 2 17-year-olds. And what about the guy bleeding, and about the cars and the damage and the young boy that was beat up? You know, what about them? Oh, too bad, so sad?
Yep.
You know, people, it's getting crazy out there. And the cops are not going to help you. The cops are being forced into being politically correct. They're not going to walk into a group of kids, especially if they're minority kids, and take a chance of ending up having to go in front of the Civil Rights Board or something. So you're on your own, guys. I got a couple other stories here I want to get through for news. There were 15 wounded in a Miami underage party. There was a shootout in Miami over the weekend. There's this little, it's like a storefront, it looks like. On one side is some building, like a civic-type building, and on the other side is a tattoo parlor. And this nightclub, there were kids in there ranging in age. There was 5 girls that ended up wounded in the firing. They ranged in age from 11 to 17. This was at 2 o'clock in the morning. What is an 11-year-old little girl doing out at 2 o'clock in the morning at a nightclub in Miami? Where were her parents?
I don't know.
You know, where's the 15-year-olds and the 17-year-olds' parents? This is from NBC Miami in Chicago. It says, police are investigating why so many minors were present at a Miami nightclub during a pre-dawn shooting as they interviewed dozens of witnesses to the weekend chaos that left 15 people wounded. Among those hit by gunfire early Sunday morning at the spot were 5 girls ranging in age from 11 to 17. What was very surprising to the responders that these were kids that were out at 1 o'clock in the morning at a club of this, and this type of violence took place, where a bunch of kids were gathering. Police weren't the only ones disturbed by the shooting and involvement of children. Can anyone tell me what in the world were young teens doing at a club that serves alcohol at 2 a.m.? Parents, please. Miami-Dade School Superintendent Alberto Cavallo tweeted Monday morning. Investigators were interviewing the owner to determine what type of club the spot is and why so many underage children were there. Was it a private party? Was it open to the public? That's what they're trying to figure out. Now, on one of the reports, I saw that there were daiquiri bottles, you know, the daiquiri mix, on some of the outdoor tables, and booze was being served. Some of the people in there were adults. They do have a liquor license they've had for a year. So I don't know if the younger kids were drinking, but somebody that said, the woman across the street said it looked like 2 people were shooting. She said the door was open and you could see the flash from gunfire from across the street.
Doesn't even matter, though, because you have anybody underage drinking with drinks being served and they can pull your liquor license.
Mm-hmm. Most of the clubs and restaurants, if, you know, there's a kid there, as soon as the sun goes down, there's no kids in the place. You know, some of the restaurants and stuff, they're family restaurants, and they do serve alcohol, but they won't allow a kid in there after sundown, and they won't serve you if you have a kid with you, period, most of the places.
Right.
Some woman was suing one of the bars down here because she was like 8.5 months pregnant, and she had 2 glasses of wine, and the bartender had shut her up after she ordered some shots. And the bartender said, no, you're 8 months pregnant, you know, 2 glasses of wine I can handle, but after that you got to go somewhere else. I'm not serving you. And they sued. The bartender won, though, because down here a bartender can refuse you for service for any reason at any time.
Here's something I forgot to post. There is actually a bar that's called, it has something to do with serving drinks to pregnant women. They have a sign in their window that says, you're drinking for 2 now.
Yeah. Well, that's a good reason. But, yeah, I was one of the ones that was reluctant. I wouldn't serve pregnant women. They were obviously pregnant.
No.
I wouldn't serve them. That Virginia Tech student, I'm sure you've all heard of her. Her name is Hannah Graham. They finally busted that guy. He was down in Texas. I don't know what he was doing down there. But they picked him up. Now they're connecting him to another murder for a girl named Morgan Harrington. She was 20. And they said that they had gotten some DNA from an unknown subject, and it seems that this guy, Jesse Matthew, his DNA matches that other disappearance and murder. So they still haven't found that girl, but they did bust him, and now they said that they have evidence linking him to the Harrington case, and it could also make him a suspect in a Fairfax, Virginia sex assault 4 years earlier, too. But they said that the DNA they recovered in the Harrington case was linked to an unknown offender in September 2005. The offender was scared away by a passerby. He had tried to grab some other woman, but he was scared away, and the woman remembered it, and there was a mugshot, not a mugshot, but a artist rendering of this. It looks like this guy. It's pretty close. So they're trying to put it in. Maybe he is connected to that too. That's a shame, though, if he's connected to that. And it took this for them to find him for the last one. I don't know. I hope they find that young girl. Hey, you hearing about this fence jumper? The White House fence jumper? He made it all the way into the East Room.
Pretty good.
The head of the Secret Service is going to be giving testimony tomorrow. And isn't she the one, her name is Julia Pearson, isn't she the one that booted all those Secret Service, the forward team? They were drinking with hookers or something. She booted them all.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if this is a payback for her. Obama wasn't there. Him and the girls had already left, and Michelle was already gone, so the president wasn't even in the White House. But how does a guy get over the fence, across the lawn, through the doors, and then they said that there's some box alarms that are supposed to go off, but they were quieted at somebody's request. But when these go off, they're supposed to immediately lock the front door. So after barreling past the guard and immediately inside the door, Gonzalez, who they said was carrying a 4-inch knife, by the way, he went past the stairway leading a half flight up to the first family's living quarters. He ran into the 80-foot-long East Room, and he was tackled by a counter-assault agent at the far southern end of the East Room. The intruder reached the doorway to the Green Room, a parlor overlooking the south lawn with artwork and antique furniture. So they're all under scrutiny now for this guy getting in there. Plus, there's bullet holes in the White House that they completely ignored until one of the maids was picking up glass.
Oh, I wonder who those came from.
Yeah, well, something's going on at the White House. It's not safe.
Well, he's
right
never
now,
there anyway, so...
Yeah, he isn't there.
He doesn't have to worry about it. Just as long as they don't scale that golf course fence, he'll be fine.
This is true. He'll be fine. He's never there. I can't believe this. But, if we went and leaned on the fence, we'd be surrounded. So how'd this guy do? I think it's a setup.
I'm surprised he doesn't have, like, a Pope-mobile golf cart that he can drive, on the course. Something with windows and everything.
Yeah.
Seems pretty confident out there, so he'll be fine. Those secret, when the cat's away, the mice will play. They were probably having fun and thought, let's see how far he can get in if we just look the other way for 5 minutes. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Or maybe they were sending him a message. You better start treating us better, punk, or we're going to look the other way. We're your line of defense here.
Yeah, really. Hey, Lynn just posted a link. It says, police searching for missing teenager Hannah Foster have discovered a body in the undergrowth. The 17-year-old failed to return to her home in Portswood, Southampton on Friday after enjoying a night out with friends. Oh, boy. I hope it's not her. I hope whoever it is, just say a prayer for them. Oh, it's the wrong Hannah, Lynn said. Yeah, this one's 17-year-old. The other one's 19, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, never mind. It's the wrong Hannah. Let's talk about this beheader for a second. The Oklahoma beheader. I just listened to his sister on Greta. And she's, the usual. He was a nice boy, and we grew up in a Christian family, and I don't think he was switching to Islam. Obviously, she hadn't seen his Facebook page in a while. She said he was never violent, but the guy's got a criminal history of assaulting cops and assaulting people and drug charges and all kinds of stuff. So, they're always a nice boy, and the family can't understand it. Everybody's living a double life or something. Well, the mosque that he was going to in Oklahoma now is linked to the mosque in Boston because the imam there, his name is Suhab Webb. He's the imam with ties to the former al-Qaeda mastermind, Anwar al-Awlaki. He was previously the leader of the Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City, which had been attended by Alton Nolan, the man who on Thursday beheaded his former co-worker. Well, now he's in Boston at the same mosque that was attended by the Marathon bombers, Johar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev. So he has a history to ties to radicalism. And the FBI surveillance documents found that he was a known confidant of al-Qaeda mastermind Anwar al-Awlaki. Just 2 days before the September 11th, 2001 attacks on America, Webb spoke at a fundraiser with al-Awlaki with hopes to raise funds for Atlanta-based H. Rap Brown. That's a man that shot and killed 2 police officers. So the FBI documents also found that Webb and al-Awlaki may be associated with the Muslim American Society, which is a group described by the Investigative Project on Terrorism, is being founded in the United States chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood. What a coincidence, huh? So this same imam at the mosque in Oklahoma, and that kid was radicalized, and he was in Boston, and those 2 boys are radicalized, and he's friends with al-Awlaki. What's this imam still doing here in the country? What's he, and not behind bars or something?
They don't care. They're looking the other way. They're looking at people with John Deere hats in Iowa. They don't care about the real problems. With all the NSA surveillance and everything they have, they could know what this guy ate for breakfast that morning.
Yep. But even today, there were stories going around that Obama's insisting that you can't profile people by their religion and you have to stay away from the mosques. Why would you stay away from the mosques when those are the breeding ground?
Well, what he meant was that's the only religion you can't profile against. Everybody else is fair game.
Yeah, well, he told the Catholics not to preach politics, remember?
Didn't he sue the Little Sisters of something?
The Little Sisters of the Poor.
Yeah.
Those Little Sisters are the sweetest, nicest. I have a family member who was in a nursing home run by one of them. They are the sweetest people. And, who could pick on the Little Sisters of the Poor? How dangerous are they?
Come on. If it's a harmless organization or whatever, he's all over it. If they're a bunch of bloodthirsty mad dogs, he gives them a pass. It's the world upside down
I'm a little
nowadays.
I'm a little tired of them getting passes. There's a second Oklahoma Muslim who was threatening to behead somebody at a nursing home, of all places. I got to tell you, too, this guy, Nolan, he was working at a food processing plant. Let's think about that for a second. A food processing plant, a distribution office. Can you imagine the type of terrorist attack he could have pulled off?
Yeah.
Just by tainting some of that food. You got to watch this. Kentucky Fried Chicken.
They don't care.
Kentucky Fried Chicken come out today and said that they're not going to give out alcohol hand wipes, the standing wipes anymore, because alcohol is against Sharia law. Well, how the hell are you going to clean your hands?
You don't. You know what? You just quit going to those restaurants, period.
Yeah, well, hand sanitizer, even soap has alcohol in it, unless you use the alcohol-free kind like they have in the prisons and institutions and stuff.
Well, he's making this a Muslim country, that's for sure. One store at a time.
He insists that we're a Muslim country. There's an estimate 8 million Muslims in the country. That's not including the illegals.
See, I heard it was 2.5 according to Breitbart last week.
Oh, no, I just saw that there was an estimate from the government that there was 8 million. And that's not including the illegals, which are being funneled in here left and right, boy. We got all kinds of they're calling them refugees, but most of them are from like Somalia and Liberia and Sierra Leone. So these are like radicals.
Well, yeah, it's going to be a whole new voting bloc.
Mhm. We have a friend. Her name is Jan Morgan. She's a prepper. She's an amazing, amazing patriot. She owns a gun store. It's called the Gun Cave. Well, today she announced that the Gun Cave has gone non-Muslim, and she gives a bunch of reasons why she has chosen to bar Muslims from her gun range. I'm going to read a couple of her reasons. She says, the Gun Cave indoor shooting range is now a Muslim-free zone. I have reached this decision based on the following. 1, the Quran, which I have read and studied thoroughly, and which all Muslims align themselves with, contains 109 verses commanding hate, murder, and terror against all human beings who refuse to submit or convert to Islam. Read those verses of violence. My life has been threatened repeatedly by Muslims in response to my publication of those verses from their Quran. Number 3, the barbaric act of beheading an innocent American in Oklahoma by a Muslim. The Boston bombing by Muslims. The Fort Hood mass shooting by a Muslim that killed 13 people and injured over 30. And the murder of 3,000 innocent people by Muslims on 9/11. This is more than enough loss of life on my home soil at the hands of Muslims to substantiate my position that Muslims can and will follow the directives of their Quran and kill here at home. Number 4, because the nature of my business involves firearms and shooting firearms in an enclosed environment, my patrons are not comfortable being around Muslims who align themselves with religion that clearly commands hate, murder, and violence against all non-Muslims. Therefore, many of my patrons are uncomfortable around Muslims with guns. Can you blame them? Number 5, my range rents and sells guns to my patrons. Why would I want to rent or sell a gun and hand ammunition to someone who aligns himself with a religion that commands him to kill me? Number 6, Muslims who belong to and or support ISIS are threatening to kill innocent Americans. Muslims who belong to or support Al-Qaeda are threatening to kill innocent Americans. Muslims who belong to or support Hamas are threatening to kill innocent Americans. Seeing a common thread here? And number 7, not only do I have the right to refuse service, but a responsibility to provide a safe environment for people to shoot and train on firearms. I can and have turned people away if I sense they are under the influence of alcohol or mind-altering drugs. I have a federal firearms license. The ATF informed us when we received the license that if we feel any reason for concern about selling someone a firearm, even sense that something is not right about an individual, or we are concerned about that person's mental state, even if they pass a background check, we do not have to sell that person a gun. So in other words, a federal agency has given us this kind of discretion for the service based on the nature of the business. You wouldn't believe already they are lining up and going after her. They are freaking out. CARE's already on her. ISNA is all over her.
ACLU.
I don't know if you got... Go ahead, hon.
I just said ACLU will be there pretty soon as well, probably.
Oh, well, I'm sure they will. She's taking heat from all over the place, but she's a strong woman. She's a great patriot. Her name's Jan Morgan. She's on Facebook, and you can find her at Twitter, and her place is called the Gun Cave. She's a firearms instructor, too. So this woman, you got to see her page. I've been friends with her now for a while, and I got to tell you, I absolutely admire her. And if she doesn't want to serve them, she doesn't have to, the way I see it. You know, would you put a gun in any of their hands right now? A loaded gun in an enclosed place?
I know, but everything's backwards. They don't profile the people they should, and they do profile people that are harmless. That's how it is now.
Yeah, that's true. You're absolutely correct. Unbelievable. I just can't even believe the condition we're in. Hey, Detroit started shutting off people's water who hadn't paid their bill recently. There was a 6-month moratorium on it, but a U.S. bankruptcy judge allowed Detroit to start shutting off the water again, and people are losing their mind. Now, the people that didn't pay their bills, do you remember all the protests and the big deal that, I don't know, like SEIU and ACORN and all those people were telling them, don't pay your bill, water's a right. Well, even if water is a right, pumping it, filtering it, cleaning it, treating it, maintaining the pipes, laying the pipes, taking care of the upkeep on the pipes, evidently is not a right. You have to pay for that. So now these people are way behind in their water. Detroit is making deals with most of them, but they have to start paying, and it's getting ugly out there. But without collecting on the delinquent payments, the department would have to increase charges for those who are paying. So the people that are paying their bills are saying, why the hell should I pay for people who are not paying their bills and receiving the service anyhow? Why don't I just not pay my bill and I'll still receive your services? How's that? So if nobody has to pay, then where's Detroit going to get the money to keep the water running?
I don't know. Have you seen it lately? It looks like Fallujah.
It does. It does. I saw some of the most magnificent buildings in the complete state of disarray that they're in now. I mean, grand buildings and ballrooms and everything, and they're just turned to rubble.
That's what 40 years of liberalism will do to you.
Yeah,
it'll turn a nice city into, the worst neighborhood in Iraq.
Yeah, well, if you're not paying your bills, you're not paying your rent, you're not paying your mortgage, there's no jobs there. Everything's in disrepair. That California's having a drought, right? We've all known about that. We've known about the San Joaquin Valley and how the water was shut off upstream for the Delta smelt, which actually is not indigenous to the area. The real reason that they shut off the water downstream was not because of a Delta smelt, because they could just round up those fish and put them in a fishery or a hatchery, and take care of them. Those fish are not going to go extinct. What it is because of the drought and the water levels being so low, the Pacific Ocean comes in upstream pretty far. There's no water there to push to keep the ocean at bay. So the salt in the Pacific water comes downstream, and that's going to ruin the grapes up in the vineyards where Pelosi's vineyard is, up in Northern California. So if they shut off the water downstream, it holds a higher level upstream, and it's able to keep the Pacific at bay, and it doesn't destroy the grapes. It has nothing to do with the Delta smelt. It has everything to do with the wineries and Pelosi and others like her. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the California harvest is much smaller. The Sacramento Bee put out an article today. It says it's harvest time in much of California, and the signs of drought are almost as abundant as the fruits and nuts and vegetables. One commodity after another is feeling the impact of the state's epic water shortage. The Great Sacramento Valley rice crop, served in sushi restaurants nationwide and exported to Asia, will be smaller than usual. Fewer grapes will be available to produce California's world-class wines, and the citrus groves of the San Joaquin Valley are producing fewer oranges. There's less hay and corn for the state's dairy cows, and the pistachio harvest is expected to shrink. Even the state's mighty almond business, which has become a powerhouse in recent years, is coming in smaller than expected. That's particularly troubling to the thousands of farmers who sacrificed other crops in order to keep their almond orchards watered. So, while many crops have yet to be harvested, it's clear that the drought has carved a significant hole in the economy of rural California. Farm incomes are dropping. They're not, one guy only hired 6 people when he ordinarily hires 8. So things are getting real bad out there in California. But they keep voting in liberals. And the ones that do escape, when they go to their new homes, they're going to vote liberal anyhow. So they're going to destroy that right underneath themselves. They're not, they haven't figured out what the issue is yet. Like the people leaving New York. Got a lot of New Yorkers down here, and they talk about, I had to leave New York because of the taxes. And then they say, well, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I never voted anything but Democrat. So then what are you doing here? Why'd you come down here? If you love the Democrats so much, stay in New York. There are all kinds of Democrats up there. But they haven't figured it out yet.
No. These people like Boxer, she's been in there forever. What has she ever done?
Nothing.
No,
nothing. Boxer, Feinstein,
and then,
Jerry Brown,
Governor
Pelosi.
Moonbeam.
Yep.
He lives to screw over this country.
Maxine Waters.
Yep.
She doesn't even campaign, and they still vote her in. There was a guy named Bruce Brown that ran against her. They didn't even give him airtime. They
nope.
just, but then they complain about the taxes and the property rates, and you can't live there unless you're a multimillionaire or a beggar. The middle class has just been forced out of California. I don't think there are very many middle class there anymore. It's either uber rich or uber poor.
That's Marxism for you.
Yeah, and a handful of beatniks thrown in. Yeah, well, it's getting pretty scary out there. For all you folks out in California, we love you. But if you're going to flee there, leave your voting habits there. Look at a place like Texas. Texas is doing good. All right, so whatever the Texans do, you do it too when you get there. It's the only thing I can tell you. They've been doing just fine without you, so obviously whatever they're doing, you should do it too.
That's getting bluer and bluer by the day. Austin, Texas is very liberal.
Oh, yeah. You ain't kidding. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse, too.
When they can elect someone like Sheila Jackson Lee, that's a red light going off right there.
Really? How did she ever get elected?
It's her district, They redistrict these things, and they sprinkle just enough Democrats in that district to, get them elected. And that's what they're going to do with all these illegals all over the country. They're going to sprinkle them in all the major cities of every state. Like, say Nebraska would be, they'd sprinkle them in Omaha and Lincoln, the two biggest cities in the state, so the entire state would go blue.
Yeah. They're doing that down here, too, in Florida. They're all over in Palm Beach County, which is Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, Hollywood area, Broward County, all that area, too. That's where all the liberals are ending up. Hey, what do you think about Holder's resignation?
Well, that really made my week.
Yeah.
Because even if they replace him, it doesn't matter. No one is going to be that bad and that experience it being bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, they may be as liberal and whatever, but no one's going to be that big of a racist. That, just totally destroy that entire organization. They're even saying that if they put in far-right conservative as AG, it would take decades to get rid of the corruption.
Oh, yeah. Remember the complete hell that Bush took when he fired all those lawyers? It's going to take that again. They're going to have to do a whole house cleaning over there.
Do you know
you got people
that he has? Do you know that he has 10,000 lawyers that work under him?
Wow.
At the DOJ. And that's why they can send 600 to defend illegal aliens for free. It's no problem. I mean, that's just a drop in the barrel. Drop in the bucket.
Yeah, and he does rely heavily on those outside organizations too, like the Center for Constitutional Rights and the Constitutional Center. That's Bernadine Dawn and a couple of the other real radicals. And of course, Holder himself is a radical. But I think you're right. I think that he is the ultimate firewall. He was a Clintonian, so that's how far back he's been a firewall. And now that he's leaving, I don't know why he's leaving though. Right now, is it the scandals? Is it the court order that says that he has to get off of the Fast and Furious documents? What about lying to the court about the IRS scandal?
He could still be. If we actually had a Congress with any spine, he could still be held accountable for whatever he did while holding office. But for the next 6 months or however long it takes to replace him, he's still going to be able to do whatever he wants in that office, except not be accountable for it as Attorney General.
Yeah, I'm figuring it's going to get worse before he leaves. Who do you think's going to replace him? I'm thinking either Kamala Harris, and the reason I'm saying that is because, boy, are they ramping up that war on woman rhetoric. I mean, even Debbie Wasserman Schultz was saying that Republicans give women the back of the hand, like Republicans are out there slapping women around or something. But I'm thinking Kamala Harris because they're playing that game already. And
that's possible.
If not her, and she was really instrumental in getting him elected too. She sewed up California so tight you couldn't get anything past her. She's the female version of Holder over there. So she's very much in the running. And then they got Deval Patrick. He's on his last term up in Massachusetts. They have term limits there for governor. So he's all done. And they call him Obama's mini-me up there in Massachusetts. So whatever Obama tells him to do, he's going to do it.
Well, and it could be Napolitano, too, She could come back.
Yeah, I don't think Nappy wants the job. I think she likes being at the college. It could be, though. You could be right. But, he's got some explaining to do, especially on the Fast and Furious, because they claimed executive privilege. Now, you can't claim executive privilege if it doesn't affect the executive office. So Obama is up to his ears involved in it. So I'm thinking maybe he's just going to take the fall on the sword, and that's going to keep the heat off of Obama for this executive privilege thing. That's really sticking in my mind, though, because, although it's a cabinet position, it's supposed to be autonomous, the Department of Justice. So when you invoke executive privilege, then you're no longer autonomous. Now you involve the executive office. So I don't know how he could go under that umbrella of privilege.
Well, they were trying to put it off until after the November elections, but the documents are supposed to be released October 23rd.
Right. He tried to even get it the day before the election. The other day, he said, well, can't we just make it for November 3rd? And they said, no, October. So when this comes out, it's only going to be a list of what the papers are. It's not going to be the actual content of the papers that they're withholding. So that still buys them a little time. And I'm sure even if he does end up, getting charged with any kind of a crime or something, that Obama will just pardon him on his way out the door. He's only got 2 more years himself, so...
Right.
So I don't know what it is, but...
Mainstream media won't cover it anyway, So the 3 top networks aren't going to say anything about it. They'll bury it.
Yeah, and, well, the IRS is running out of time. Yes, they have to produce the documents in the IRS, too. And how many times did he go in front of the Oversight Committee and say, I don't know, and I don't have that answer, and I'll have to get back to you? And, he never knew anything.
3 times at least, I think, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Blatantly lied, He lied to him just like Bill Clinton did. So, why is he still there?
I don't know. I really, really don't know.
You know who's going to be sad to see him go more than anybody, don't you?
Who?
Oh, Lois Lerner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, has Holder been working with anybody like Cole or Tony West or any of them behind the scenes to stay on top of this stuff, the IRS and especially the Fast and Furious scandal, because that one involves international gun running. and murder and all that. Nobody died in the IRS thing, but
he's a cover-up artist, you know. That's what he does. He covers everything up.
And not only that, he was doing sue and settle, too. All those bigwig Wall Street moguls who should have been behind bars. He ended up making deals with them. Even the BP scandal with the blowout, the oil spill, they even sued and settled with that. You know, nobody did a minute's time. Corzine, Jamie Dimon, none of them. You know, they should have been in jail over the robbing the farmers.
Yeah, look at D'Souza, the filmmaker. Okay?
Right.
Look, he's looking at 8 months or whatever. You had Martha Stewart that went to prison for a $10,000 mistake, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Corzine embezzled $2.5 billion with a B. And he's, you know, he's on yachts. He's having a good time.
Yeah.
So it's who you know, not what you do, of course.
Yeah, and Dinesh D'Souza, he's got to go to re-education camp.
I'm still shocked about the Martha Stewart thing. I mean, $10,000. That to a millionaire is like 10 cents to you and I.
I know.
You know, it was nothing.
$10,000. That's a night out on the town for them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and the same with D'Souza. It was $20,000. He gave two of his friends $10,000 to give to a candidate who ended up losing, by the way. But you're not supposed to do that. But unions can do it, and Acorn can do it. And Citizens United said that that's freedom of speech, but it still violated the law at the time. So they got him for a law that's not even a law in effect anymore. And they said that he's got to have therapeutic counseling.
Yeah, re-education camp.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you know, what kind of therapeutic counseling do you need for a $10,000 gift to a campaign? And you got to get shrunk for that? That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right.
If you don't have that left-wing ideology burrowed into your brain, they think there's something wrong with you.
Yes, you're absolutely right, too. They think you're crazy. In the meantime, I think they're crazy, by the way. Let's take our first commercial break, because when we come back, we have a ton more news to get to. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things like Obama turning our military into a refuge for illegals and covering up terror and granting amnesty. You know, Jay Johnson said that granting amnesty is going to encourage terrorists to come forward.
Yeah, I heard that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, let's think about that for a second. We'll be right back. Go get a drink of water or something. And we are back live. You're listening to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, right here at PRN Radio Network, the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program. Way to go, Watchmen. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host, Scott Fararello, is with me. And we're glad you stuck around, too. Thank you very much. Hey, Scott, you still there?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Don't leave me now. I was only kidding with you about the name. Hey, when we left off, we were talking about Obama turning the military into a refuge for illegals. I want to explain that. A friend of ours, Jim Corey, he writes for the Examiner. Excellent writer. He wrote this article on Thursday. He said Obama's Defense Department on Thursday announced its plan to recruit illegal aliens who they admit are undocumented to join the United States Armed Forces, according to a statement released by the Pentagon. Critics are unhappy with the latest announcement, with some claiming American armed services will become more like the French Foreign Legion, which historically allow fugitives from justice and others to join up with no required documentation. On Friday, you all know, Obama signed an executive order doing just that. So he was absolutely right on Thursday. That's why I chose this article. The plan entails allowing immigrants now living in the United States illegally to have the opportunity to join the United States military under a new Defense Department policy. The new policy will be linked to the military's use of foreign nationals legally residing in the U.S. or seeking to enter the country who are recruited for foreign language skills or specialized skills that are valuable to the American national security. Well, I don't know what, just boots on the ground is valuable, so that really isn't much of a criteria. So that program, which is based on necessity and called military accessions, vital to national interest, would allow illegal aliens who don't possess proper visas, if they come to the United States with their parents before the age of 16, who are called dreamers. Those considered qualified will be approved under an Obama administration regulation known as Deferred Action for Child Arrivals, or DACA. That's a policy that wasn't even passed by the U.S. Congress, but is dictated by presidential fiat. So that was an executive order, too, the DREAM Act, DACA. There's so many questions that need to be answered, and those questions may be addressed if the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate debate the issue and allow the American people, those pesky U.S. citizens, to understand the pros and cons of recruiting people who are basically undocumented and unknown, said former U.S. Marine and Police Inspector David Randolph. This goes on. There's another cop, Chuck Beasley, and they go on with the Marine Times on Friday. The Department of Defense believes that between 1 million and 3 million children, teenagers, and young adults illegally living in the United States are eligible for these benefits. Because you get benefits, too, and your families get benefits and all that. So it is. It's going to be like the French Foreign Legion, and they're going to be replacing these people that are being laid off and fired.
Well, and they also won't have any allegiance to the country, really, and probably won't have any qualms about firing on American citizens if ordered to either.
That's a very good point. We even brought that up when we were talking about Holder recruiting these illegals, these dreamers, into AmeriCorps.
Right.
Here's people with no parents, no country, no home, and the only allegiance they have is to Obama. That's not real good.
Nope.
We better think about this long and hard. And if they are going to be replacing, as this article states, if they're going to be replacing the people that are being laid off, why are we even laying them off if we need them? To make room for these illegals?
Well, I'd like to know why. I'd like to know why some of these Congress people that are more Tea Party-like don't nullify those executive orders, because they don't become law until about 60 days after he signs them. At any time, the House, one of the congressmen can put in a motion to have it nullified. Nobody does.
Well, I'm telling you, this is not good. Why would we have an army that has no allegiance to the country? You're right. I'm very upset about that. And half these people coming across, half these dreamers, are gang members. So we want to fill up the military with MS-13 and Sinaloas and Lietas or whatever they're called.
Well, I want to know how all these... I want to know who's transporting all these kids that don't supposedly have parents. I don't know about you, but I had a problem walking 5 blocks to school every day, let alone all from the other side of Mexico or Honduras or El Salvador or Guatemala,
Well, these little kids are geniuses.
Are they tricycles?
Well, they're geniuses. What other 4-year-old do you know that can walk 1,800 miles over heavy terrain and through jungles and over mountains and cross rivers and, follow GPS and everything? They're pretty good for a 4-year-old.
Well, maybe they're in training for the U.S. Army.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
they're being flown in. None of them ever touched the border. You got La Raza and all those groups. They sent charters for them. Those children showed up in new Obama sneakers and looking clean and bright. They don't look a little bit ragged or anything. They were packed up in El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras and wherever else, put on planes or buses and brought to the United States. Maybe the Mexicans were brought in by the coyotes, but not the El Salvadorans. You didn't get all the way through Mexico. In those numbers, 40,000 children didn't walk through Mexico undetected. And what about the 7 plane loads of the Somalis that landed at Hanscom Air Force Base? How did they get here? Swim?
Right. And
and
they're doing it every week. This is, every week.
Yeah, well, they're either
Probably
baby geniuses or we're being had.
Probably for the last 6 years at least.
Yeah. And, they even put out job requests for people to drive them and escort them, these unaccompanied minors. 68,000 of them. How'd they know they were going to have 68,000? Coincidence? No, of course not. It was planned. Every bit of this is planned. And there's people down on the border day and night, just American patriots who are down there. They know who's coming and who's going. They know who's coming across that border. Most of them is drug dealers or mules. Most of them are adult males, or nearly adult males, between the ages of 14 and 20. So, where'd all these little kids come from? They didn't cross that border. They were dropped off near the Border Patrol station and told to run up to that man and he'll take care of you. And the parents went on the other side and went to wherever they were going and wait for the U.S. to deliver those kids. While the Border Patrol's busy with the busloads of little kids, the parents got away. They're in Miami or they're in San Diego or wherever they're going. They reach their destination. They know that the government's going to bring those kids to them. The Obama administration is the biggest human smuggler in the country right now. He's smuggling them in. He's the biggest coyote around.
And don't forget what Petraeus said. What comes after North America? North American Union, Canada, Mexico, America, all in one big happy family.
Oh, yeah. And not only that, but who else is coming across there? Terrorists, they just fly in on a tourist visa and then just never fly home. Or a student visa, and then disappear into the communities. And then nobody looks for them. They said 70%, and that's a lowball number, don't even show up for their first court appearance. So we don't know who these people are. None of them have any IDs. They're letting them fly around the country on airplanes without an ID. Let's see an American try it. You get felt up at the airport if you're a 100-year-old lady in a wheelchair. But if you don't have any paperwork, go ahead, get on. Or if you're in a burqa, no problem, get on.
Retired Sergeant Major Danny Page even said that there are Iranians training in South America, and you really can't tell them, that any difference between the looks of them and regular Mexican citizen. How many Iranians are coming over the border?
Yeah, I don't know, but I bet you there's quite a few of them, and ISIS and whatever. The Dems are even trying to cover up terrorist activity at the border. They got this one congressman, his name is Beto O'Rourke. That matches as much as Omar Gonzalez, Beto O'Rourke. Judicial Watch has an article here. It says that the Dems are trying to cover up ISIS activity near the border. Federal law enforcement sources in El Paso say that a United States congressman called their office to prohibit contact with Judicial Watch in the aftermath of a disturbing story confirming that Islamist terrorists are operating in the Mexican border city of Ciudad Juarez. Sources tell Judicial Watch that Beto B-E-T-O, O'Rourke, a Democrat who represents El Paso in the U.S. House of Representatives, telephoned the area offices of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security Investigations, and the U.S. Border Patrol in an effort to identify and evidently intimidate sources that may have been used by Judicial Watch on August 29th. On the 29th of August, the Judicial Watch reported that the militant group Islamic State of Iraq and Greater Syria, ISIS, is working in Juarez and planning to attack the United States with car bombs or other vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. In the piece, JW cites high-level federal law enforcement, intelligence, and other sources confirming that a warning bulletin for an imminent terrorist attack on the border had been issued. Agents across a number of Homeland Security, Justice, and Defense agencies have all been placed on alert and instructed to aggressively work all possible leads and sources concerning this imminent terrorist threat. In the aftermath of the Judicial Watch story, Fort Bliss, an El Paso Army base near Juarez, increased security measures And the sheriff in Midland County, Texas, located halfway between Fort Worth and El Paso, confirmed that he received an alert bulletin, a warning from the feds that ISIS may have formed terrorist cells in our area or near Juarez. O'Rourke evidently believes that someone on the inside is feeding Judicial Watch information because the facts in all our reporting have been correct, according to government sources with first-hand knowledge of the matter. He called the El Paso office of the FBI, HSI, and USDP, asking if anyone was talking to Judicial Watch. One inside source told JW this week. O'Rourke's calls were followed by a memo that came down through the chain of command threatening to terminate or criminally charge any agent who speaks to media of any kind. This would include Judicial Watch, a nonprofit legal watchdog that has broken a number of government corruption stories on its website and newsletter. I love Judicial Watch. So
yeah, isn't Judicial Watch the one responsible for the Fast and Furious docs being released?
Yep. And the IRS.
Okay.
Yep, that's Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Amazing, fantastic watchdog group. But now, I mean, if you have a threat of ISIS operating at the border, you can't talk to the media about that? What is this? You got federal agencies clamping down on information to the public? Information that there's a serious threat, a credible threat, and they're beefing up their security, but they're just going to leave the people in la-la land? Because
yeah,
they got
what
an
happened
attitude?
to that if you see something, say something policy?
Yeah,
I guess that doesn't count with them, right?
Yeah, no, if you see something, say something. No, if you see something, keep your mouth shut and don't talk to the press.
Right, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so you're just going to let everybody get blown up. You got people walking down the street not knowing that a car that they're about to pass is loaded with bombs, and you knew about it, but you didn't tell anybody because Judicial Watch might have found out about it. I mean, that's an awful lot of hate coming out of the feds, isn't it, for one little organization? And it threatens.
And what happened to the
public.
First Amendment? Don't you have freedom of the press, freedom of speech?
Right.
No?
Not anymore, I guess. And then you got screwballs like Jay Johnson, who's the head of the Department of Homeland Security, saying, well, if you grant amnesty, it's going to encourage terrorists to come forward because they're going to have to apply for amnesty and background checks. Is this guy out to lunch? He has to be.
Well, they just make up the biggest, most ridiculous lie they can because they know that some people will believe it, and when it turns out to be total hogwash, they can just say, well, I was wrong, what do you want? Just a few weeks ago, they said if you pass amnesty, it'll reduce the deficit.
Yeah.
Come on.
We got a break-in call here. Our medical colleague, JoJo, is on the line. JoJo.
Hey. Well, about 4 months ago, I did that little spill on Louisiana politics, and everybody said I was crazy about Edwin Edwards. Do you remember that?
Yeah, you said that even though he was a crook, everybody loved him.
Right, and that, he would win and blah, 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 blah. It's got the little graphics in there. Which, not that I believe all the polls because they're not polling correctly, but the poll just came out for Louisiana's 6th Congressional District. Would you like to know what the numbers are?
What are the numbers?
Edwin Edwards, 34.7%.
Wow.
Second runner-up, 15.7%, and third runner-up, 13.6%. So, it'll also be a runoff, just like the Senate race will probably be a runoff. So, I even had people in Louisiana tell me I was crazy. I didn't know what I was talking about. So I actually think I'm a pretty good political analysis person.
I think you are. Yeah,
and
you
I
said that he had gone away for what, embezzling or corruption or something?
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and now he's 80 years old and he did time for corruption, and you can't beat him.
Well, he's 87 or 88. But I told y'all in that clip, he's funny. He admits to being dishonest, but he's just and I told y'all he'd win. Now, I'm not saying he's going to win, but he's definitely going to. He's running double numbers than anybody else in the race.
Didn't he have like a 20-year-old wife or something?
She's 50 years younger than him, so she's about 40-something.
Wow. And
anyway.
there's nobody can beat him.
No, I tell y'all that.
So when he was 50, his wife was just being born?
Probably so. It's a third wife, I think.
I'm just asking. I'm not judging, I'm just asking.
I mean, I'm just saying, he was I can't remember all the statistics. He was our governor 3 terms, maybe 4 terms, because he ran 2, set out 1, ran 2 more, something like that. And I don't know. I just told you. I just hope my other predictions are right. But I can't talk about that anymore. So, but I just did want to say that even though when I made that broadcast 4 months ago, I wasn't in the position I'm in now, so I can refer back to it, I suppose. But I just wanted to say that I'm probably a better pollster than what's that dude's name in New Orleans? Bald-headed dude, my buddy.
James Cavell.
Yeah.
Oh, James Carville.
Carville. Yeah, James Carville. I'm probably
Raging Cajun.
Yeah, the Raging Cajun. So anyway,
wow.
I just thought it was funny.
Well, I hope Rob
Maness
y'all. Takes it over there. I hope at least Rob Maness takes it. You got a couple of people down there, Landria, who should have one foot out the door and the other on a banana peel. If it was up to me, Rob Maness is a patriot. What's that other guy's name that's running as a Republican too?
Bill Cassidy.
Bill Cassidy.
He's currently, now here's the thing. I'm going to be very bipartisan about this right now because I have to be, but Bill Cassidy is in the state, in the House of Representatives, and he represents the 6th Congressional District, which is the seat that Edwin Edwards is running for. Edwards is a Democrat running for Cassidy's seat. So that means we'll lose a Republican seat in the House.
Yeah. So if Bill Cassidy shut his mouth and stayed where he was, then the other guy wouldn't even have a chance, and Rob Maness could walk away with the Senate. So then you'd have.
I can't comment.
I know you can't comment, but I can. And that would have been the better choice. And back when you were able to comment, that was pretty much what the conclusion was anyhow, that Cassidy should have stayed where he was. And have that. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I need to shut up. You talk.
Okay.
But
while
anyway,
I got you on the phone, talk to me about this enterovirus and the polio. I know we went over it in the beginning of the show, but now that we have a medical expert on the phone.
Yeah, when I put that research thread out 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jan and Kelly and several others were, on the research. There's subsets of a virus, and there's subsets of this enterovirus D68. And one of the subsets is Kawasaki's disease. Now, in nursing school, we call it Kawasaki's disease because we thought we were funny. But anyway, it's easier to say.
It sounds filthy when you say it right, though.
Yeah, I know. It has a component of it that has the neuro component, the part that's got the polio effect to it, and the part that's causing the paralysis and this and that and the other. There's also a subset, and I can't think of the name of it right now. It starts with a P, that has meningitis factor to it. So, you'd have to read up on viruses and understand how they work, and I certainly can't explain all that. But this virus has at least three subsets of viruses that go within the virus. Now, my big thing is I've been trying to tell people, because everybody wants to blame it on the immigrants. This is a rare virus. In the last 50 years, there's only been 100 cases in the whole United States. So, and I don't remember the data from the rest of the countries, but it was very, very, very low. So everybody wants to blame it on the immigrants. You can't take, I'll just throw a number out there, 10,000 immigrant children and spread them in 500 or 1,000 increments all over the United States and then spread it this fast. It has to have another component. It has to have another common denominator. And I can't prove what the common denominator is. I have, a pretty good theory, and I won't to go there, but if you use your common sense, you number one, school started, okay? Now, number one, kids are going to spread germs because kids don't know how to wash their hands, they don't know how to cover their mouth, and all the other things. So when school first starts, you're going to have an element of sickness anyway because of just the fact that you've got a bunch of little kids running around with snotty noses. And as you know, if you have a kid and you ever put them in daycare, they automatically come home sick. Okay, so that's one component of it. It is going to be spread that way because school started. But it didn't even start spread until the second, or depending on where you are, I'm just going to generally say in the second week of school. I don't know what the incubation period of this virus is. I've never been able to find that out or read that, but most viruses, are anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks.
Right.
So you just have to factor all this kind of stuff in, use your common sense, try to find a common denominator, and then, you have to look at a lot of other things that are going on out there in the world. Now, one of the things that really brought my attention to this whole disease is on July 31st, Mr. Obama put out an executive order, a quarantine executive order to quarantine anybody with a contagious respiratory virus.
Right.
Or illness. He might not have said virus. It may be illness. And at the time, we were all going, nuts over trying to figure this Ebola stuff out. And I remember you and I talking, Joanne. We said, for God, what the heck? What's the respiratory crap for? Ebola is not a respiratory virus.
Yeah. So then we started thinking
it's
like the N1, H1N1 or something.
Yeah, but, Ebola is not a, it can be spread that way, but it's not a quote-unquote respiratory virus. You don't have respiratory symptoms. You may have toward the end of your life have respiratory symptoms, but the beginning of it is not respiratory. So we were all shaking our heads going, has he lost his mind, because we were thinking Ebola. And then we kind of forgot about the executive order for 2 or 3 weeks, and then boom, man, this stuff started hitting. And it started hitting like crazy. And it jumped from state to state. It started in Missouri, it jumped to Colorado, and then it ran rampant all the way back across the Midwest. Of course, now, they're saying 38 states. But when they were saying it was 13 and 15 states, they weren't including Texas and Louisiana, and I know for a fact Texas and Louisiana had it.
And so did Florida.
The data's not there. Yeah, the data's not there. The data's not accurate. You can go to the CDC website 4 times a day. It's not kept up to date. We know that because we were watching it like crazy with Ebola.
Right.
They continually told people it was not an airborne disease. And all you got to do is do a little research. The Western virus was in the 90s. I want to say 90. I can't remember. The Western virus was in Maryland, and that was perpetuated by our own government because they were studying it, and therefore that's how they found out it was airborne. And Ebola also has, at the time, a month or so ago when I was studying it, it had 5 or 6 strains. It may have up to 10 strains by now. I don't know. I haven't studied it lately.
Yeah.
But these viruses, they get different strains, just like the flu. The flu will have 2 or 3 different strains. So there's pretty much impossible to prove anything, but you can just use your common sense and put 1, 2, 3 together and come up with whatever.
You think that they intentionally got these kids sick and shipped them out all over the country?
No.
I don't
think it's coming.
Even healthy kids.
Obama must be psychic. He knew it was going to happen a month before it came. Wow.
Yeah. I don't think it's from the immigrants. Now, the immigrants are bringing over TB and measles and some other stuff. There's no doubt they're bringing some diseases in our country. There's absolutely no doubt. But 3 months ago, I did a report on polio with the Syrian refugees. The Syrian refugees were going into, was it Turkey? Or where were they going? By the tens of thousands. And there was a polio breakout with the Syrian refugees. That was 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. And then we haven't heard anything else about that again either. So there's no doubt that there are diseases that were basically eradicated in the United States over the years. And there's no doubt in my mind that some of the old school vaccinations were very needed. What we did in the 60s in my opinion, is a whole lot different than what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I looked up some stuff the other day, and in our research, we were looking at Merck for one thing. Y'all can go back to that thread and look at it. But, unless you had a child or someone in your family that had hepatitis, why in the world do you think a newborn baby would need a hepatitis B vaccine? My common sense tells me that's just ludicrous.
Yeah, really. I was wondering that myself.
Ludicrous. And
if the mother doesn't have it and the children don't have it, why would you?
Or their brother or sister or somebody at home. If there's going to be no exposure, now I think it would be different if you were coming home and one of your siblings may have it or something like that. That might be a necessary precaution or whatever. But just a normal household, normal whatever, And then over the last, 10, 15, 20 years, they've increased the vaccines. God, we used to just get 4 or 5, and now, God, we're up to a lot.
Yeah, I know. You got a ton of vaccines, MMR and chickenpox and all of them.
Yeah, and pneumonia, flu,
polio,
chickenpox. They don't get polio anymore.
Not even a drink?
They may start. As far as I know, the last thing I looked at, I could be wrong, but
maybe this is a reason to. Maybe this is a reason to sell some vaccines, huh?
Maybe not.
Thinking about that.
Just encourage, if everybody's curious about it, do their own research. It's not hard. Start Googling stuff.
Yeah, a solution looking for a problem.
Maybe so. You have to look at who sells them. And then in our research we found out that, I'm going to use Merck, for example, because I think there's probably some others, but in our research, all Merck vaccines are made in China. And China does not regulate their industry as well as we do. And, food for thought.
Yeah, really.
Just like, the story about we're going to start taking our chicken from here, sending it to China. They're going to put it in little freezer bags and send back to us. Yeah.
Why, we can't find chicken pluckers here?
I guess not. I thought we just, isn't that why we let all them immigrants in to take those jobs Americans didn't want?
Yeah. Well, I think chicken plucking's a good job.
Yeah, well, now they're here to take the jobs that Americans do want.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're taking the whole military. They're laying off our military and replacing them with illegals.
Yeah,
making room for illegals. Well, it's,
but the sad thing is 15 years ago, people did immigrate to this country to get farm jobs, farm workers.
Yeah.
But now they're just immigrating to get the EBT card and Medicaid that your average American can't get.
Don't you think that's soft bigotry anyhow? They say, they're going to take the jobs Americans don't want. So what are they, third-class citizens that come here to be slaves? I don't think so. That's pretty elitist and snobby, if you ask me, to say, they'll take the jobs that Americans don't want. Like, that's like saying that they have to rush out and have all this affirmative action because, blacks aren't capable of doing it on their own or something. That's bigotry. They don't really need their lily white
Well, I'm going to tell you,
stuff.
back in the 60s, because we owned a farm, during the certain seasons, like cotton picking season, for instance, we would have 3 or 4 immigrant Mexicans come over. They'd work the season. They'd come in on a visa or something. They would work whatever it was, 2 or 3 months, save their money, and then they'd go back home. When I lived in South Louisiana during crab season, a couple of dozen would come over. All the paperwork's intact because the people that owned the business had to fill it out because I was there. I saw them. We talked about filling out the paperwork. They would come over, about a dozen of them. They'd give them a place to live. They would work at this crab processing plant where, we brought the crabs in. They picked the crab meat out of the crabs, blah, 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 blah. They were fast, too. But then when crab season was over, they went back home.
Right.
So, that's the way it's been for years.
Yeah, temporary work visas and the green cards, and the paperwork was in order. They just didn't sneak over the border. They came in legally. Half these people, they don't have any intention on becoming citizens.
Or
they
working.
Just, for the benefit.
Working.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, why would
you and I and Scott could be starving to death, and they might give us a $20 EBT card. That'd be about all they'd give us, because we've paid taxes for 35, 40 years, whatever.
Right.
So they say, here, you qualify for $20. Woo-hoo.
This is just as bad as the Democrats saying that blacks aren't smart enough or responsible enough to get photo IDs so they can vote. No difference.
Well, I think they have to have a photo ID, but these people they are targeting, they also have to have a photo ID and a checking account and every other thing to get benefits. I mean, if you're going to get any benefits, whether you drive a car or not, you have to have a bank account. You have to have, they're going to send you your little government debit card. I mean, you have to have ID for every other thing in the world. So that's just a made up excuse.
Which Republicans never bring up. They never say that.
There may be some 90-year-old woman in a nursing home that's never driven and doesn't have an ID. Maybe, but when Texas was fighting Eric Holder on that, they did some big, huge thing. And out of all the people that he said were disenfranchised, they only came up with 2 people in the whole state of Texas that actually had trouble getting an ID. Period. That wanted an ID that was trying to get an ID. Two people.
Yeah, I remember the old lady. The town hall had burnt down, and she was born in like 1913 or something. And they had to go through a bunch of stuff, and then finally they just got somebody to vote for her. But out of everybody in the country, 2 people. And that really is bigotry. That's like saying you're not smart enough, you're a lesser person. You're going to do jobs that Americans don't want because you're a lesser person, or you can't get an ID because you're not smart enough to pull it off.
Right.
That's bigotry.
But let me just say this, because NOAA.com or KKBS, one of these news organizations in Louisiana can put a political type ad, not an ad, but an article on the Senate race, for example. I'll just use that for an example. They'll put an article out about one of the top 3 people running for Senate. And then I start reading the comments. And I'm thinking, there's a lot of people that have no idea who's running, what they stand for, know anything about them, make all kinds of horrible remarks about people that they know nothing about. They won't even take the time to look. I'm just going to use the top 3. There's 6 running, I think. They won't even take the time to look at the top 3 and make up their own mind. It's like you have a mind, you're able to think, you obviously have a computer because you're posting garbage on these websites. It doesn't take maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes to go look at these 3 candidates and see what they stand for or see how they voted. All I'm saying is whoever you want to vote for, you got to make an informed decision. Your vote's important. It counts. It affects the rest of the nation. So quit acting like a big dum-dum and at least spend 30 minutes looking at them and make your decision. Don't make a decision based on what the media tells you or the DNC tells you or the RNC tells you or the Libertarian Party tells you or any other party out there. If you're smart enough to vote, you ought to be smart enough to go look at them.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely right.
It's not about being smart enough. It's about being not lazy enough. Most people don't want to. It takes time. It takes effort. They'd rather be told what to do. TV tells them what to eat and what to wear and everything else. Why shouldn't it tell them who to vote for?
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's something we should learn. We spend all this time doing this research and investigating every one of them and everything that comes up. We just pour through it and we look at every detail and analyze it. So instead of telling people all the information, I think maybe we should just tell them shut up and just do it. I was even thinking, telling all these Democrats down here, you want that marijuana law passed? I'll vote for your marijuana law if you vote for who I tell you to vote for.
Yeah, well, if that would work, if you had a big enough audience, but...
Yeah, make a deal. You want me to vote for that marijuana law? You want me to get my friends to vote for that? What are you going to do for me? That's the way the world works, right?
I just don't think the average person, not just in Louisiana, in every state, knows the importance of their vote and their importance of how their vote matters, and not just the Senate race, local politics. We have a big judge race coming up here. We have some mayor races coming up, some other things like that. I mean, if you're going to vote for a district judge in your area, you ought to kind of look at the people and decide who you want representing you. I mean, if you're going to vote for a mayor of a large city like Shreveport, for example, they have about 6 people running, and I watched one debate, and the person I thought did the debate the best, I was told was crazy. But I don't know. If I was voting and I looked at the debate, I'd vote for who I thought made the most sense in the debate.
I always look to boot the judge every time. If I don't know who it is and I have to choose, boot him.
Excuse me. Obama signed an executive order on Thursday establishing a presidential commission to deal with election administration. He's trying to nationalize the elections.
Well, I think it's kind of
how well that worked with the IRS, right?
Yeah. How's he planning on nationalizing it? I don't even want to know. Well,
it says the order states that the commission shall identify best practices and otherwise make recommendations to promote the efficient administration of elections in order to ensure that all eligible voters have the opportunity to cast their ballots without undue delay.
I believe that is the Secretary of State. That is the job that we elected, each state elected a Secretary of State for. That's just another getting into the 10th Amendment to states' rights. And if these states, if the governors, the Secretary of States, the Attorney Generals of each 50 states don't start standing up, well, basically, I guess we don't have states' rights, but whatever.
Yeah, well, it says
they're
going to focus.
I'm just quoting, people need to understand that we have 3 branches of government in Washington. Most people don't even know that. To me, if you just don't know the basics, stay home and don't vote, and let the rest of us that know what's going on vote, that can make an educated decision.
Yeah, well, he said that there were long lines in last November's election, so he needs voting reforms now.
Well, did you see
and
that
you're right.
They want him to vote by phone now?
Oh, God. Kind of like Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
And I just missed my Duck Dynasty girl because I forgot it was on. Yeah, why are you going to vote on Dance with the Stars? You can vote up to 10 times on your phone. Well, why? Why don't you just vote once? I mean, it's stupid. I'm so mad because I missed it. I normally don't. I mean, everybody's laughing at me. I normally don't watch TV at all, but I'm only was going to watch it because of my Robertson girls on there.
Right, the little chickies on there, the Robinson kid.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's doing pretty good too. And her dad's all over it.
Yeah. I spent some time with her grandma this year. She's her grandma grew up here. Anyway.
Oh. Well, back to those elections, Joe. The executive order says the same thing. The commission's going to focus on polling places, how to better train and recruit poll workers, managing voter rolls and poll books and voting machines, ballot simplicity, English proficiency, and absentee ballots. That's all the responsibility that the state has. That's what he's doing, But you see how well that worked with the IRS. How unbiased do you think that his elections are ever going to be? I mean, between him and Soros and the Rothschilds, the Diebold machines and Seidel, the people counting the votes, and Soros' Secretary of State program, and now he's going to nationalize the election. That's the final nail in the coffin. Even earlier, Scott was talking about down in Texas. Battleground Texas, Project Veritas, came out with a new video today. And this Battleground Texas, they have been going around registering people to vote, and then if they don't if the person's going to say they want to register as a Democrat, then they keep those. If they register as a Republican or an independent, they end up throwing those away. And they're having people doing the registration that aren't even deputized, so they're just making stuff up. And, and O'Keefe, his people from Project Veritas, they went in there and they hung around, got jobs and stuff. And these people were just talking, saying, yeah, I threw it in the rubbish, or it accidentally got shredded because I didn't, it didn't conform with what I was thinking it should be, and they were busted. But nobody even reported it. They asked the commissioner, O'Keefe asked the commissioner, and nobody had reported the inconsistencies or anything, so it's right there. Yeah, his executive order is going to go real fast. But
that's why I don't know. You guys, some of you think it's great to vote and everything, but you got all that voter fraud. You got the executive branch basically writing executive orders and following it as law with no pushback, totally making Congress irrelevant for those people that you sent into office to make a difference. And
right.
It's just a one-world dictatorship.
Yeah, that takes away the people's voice with his executive orders. We're not represented. How can we be represented when it's one-man rule?
Well, most world don't know, but technically we don't follow their executive orders anyway. You have to be a federal employee, but, who cares? We don't go by any other law, so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're right.
But if our states don't stand up for us, then,
Those dreamers are doing a pretty good job at following it, huh? Those dreamers are getting in after he wrote that executive order, and sure seems that with no pushback. No votes for Obamacare on the Republican side. That passed.
Yeah, well, he took an oath to uphold
funding it,
the laws, not change them, not rewrite them, not ignore them. He said he would uphold the laws.
I don't have the numbers on Obamacare, but it's going to be a huge fail, I think. We got 3 months to go before they implement most of it, and nobody's signing up for it. So how are they going to be able to impose something that nobody signs up for?
Yeah, where do all these businesses get whacked?
Bailouts. They'll bail out all the insurance companies, and they don't
care. They will.
Yeah, they're already doing it.
They will.
They're already doing it. The insurance companies submitted their bills.
Then anybody that has a tax return coming won't get it. So you might kind of do your own math there and figure out a way to keep your money and not have a tax return because you're not going to get it anyway.
Yeah, really. They will. They'll hijack your tax return too. So you might as well just take it during the year.
Yeah, claim 4, claim 5, claim 6, claim whatever.
Yeah, the illegals do. They're claiming 8, 9 kids that don't even live in the country.
Yeah. Or just don't file. I don't know. That's each individual person's. Of course, I'm a chicken. I'm going to file because I'm figured out, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to end up like Al Capone.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
I may end up like Al Capone anyway, but,
up in re-education camp.
We're probably all going to be in a re-education camp, but, all right. I can't keep making smart aleck remarks. So, anyway, I just wanted to tell you that my political analysis that I gave 4 months ago was absolutely dead on.
Yeah, it was.
We'll see what
It's
else
coming through. Well, I want to thank you for calling in, JoJo.
All righty.
Very much. We appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, JoJo, a medical correspondent.
Medical correspondent. I'll put myself on hold.
All right, let's get back and do it. We got about 10 minutes left. We got about 8 minutes left. So you want to do a lightning round?
Go for it.
All right. Remember Obama said that he is fashioning his war on ISIS in the same way that he did Yemen, and Yemen's such a success? Well, today the United States issued a travel warning for Yemen. From Katie Pavlich over at Town Hall says, in laying out his strategy to combat ISIS in Iraq and Syria through airstrikes 2 weeks ago, Obama cited Somalia and Yemen as examples of where the United States has been successful in fighting terrorism. The strategy of taking out terrorists who threaten us while supporting partners on the front lines is one we have successfully pursued in Yemen and Somalia for years, Obama said. Now, just 2 weeks later, the State Department has issued a travel warning for Yemen. Today, the State Department ordered a temporary reduction in the number of U.S. government personnel in Yemen. We're taking this step out of an abundance of caution and in response to recent political developments and the changing, unpredictable security situation in Yemen. So, that was a real good example of his successes, right? Now, you've heard him talk about Khorasan, right? Khorasan is this group, and they're more dangerous than ISIS. Do you know that that's a fictitious name? There is no Khorasan. They made it up. The name is Khor al-Qaeda. But they couldn't tell you that the Khor al-Qaeda is more dangerous now because Obama has said that al-Qaeda was on the run. So, instead of telling you the truth, they did the old liberal standby, change the name. They changed the name of everything. A war is not a war, remember? It's kinetic, whatever it is, kinetic operation.
Kinetic action.
Yeah, kinetic action. Well, Khorasan is Khor al-Qaeda. There is no Khorasan. It's a made-up name, and everybody knows it now, and he's not even sorry for it. Obama blamed his intel community for ISIS. At least he didn't blame Bush. But he said that his intel was lousy, he didn't get it, or whatever. He went right out there and said, our intel analysis was, fell behind, or whatever he said. And then today, Josh Ernst comes out and says, well, we have full confidence in Clapper. Well, if Clapper missed it, and Clapper fell behind, and Clapper sucks, and his intel sucks, why would you have full confidence in him unless you are lying? So either they have confidence in him or he sucks. What is it?
He sucks. They have confidence that he sucks.
Yeah, that's probably it. But Clapper now told everybody that he did give Obama the information, and he's had the information since 2012. So he's had it for more than a year. He's had it 2 years. And then we have a 3-star Democrat. He's an admiral, Joe Sept. All right? He said that ISIS wasn't an intelligence failure. It was a failure to act. Truth Revolt put this out. Retired 3-star admiral, former director of the Navy's anti-terrorism unit, and former Congressman Joe Sept repudiated Obama's claim that ISIS was an intelligence failure. Speaking on Monday, Jose Diaz-Balart program on MSNBC, the Democrat opined that the U.S. intelligence community was not wrong about ISIS, but that the Obama administration was slow to address the terrorism threat. So Sestac's response threw the pro-Obama host for such a loop that his follow-up question was an amaze. So you're saying the intelligence community didn't get it wrong? And Sestak said, no, I don't think they did. If you remember back in January and February, the head, the general, the Defense Intelligence Agency actually testified before the House and Senate that in 2014 ISIS would take over large swaths of territory. In fact, at the time that he testified, they had already seized Ramadi and Fallujah, 35 miles from Baghdad. I think it was pretty obvious from his testimony that they had capability. Even James Clapper said that. They were 35 miles away. Well, now, ISIS is 1 mile from Baghdad. They're probably in Baghdad now because this came out about 2:30 this afternoon that they were 1 mile from Baghdad. Weasel Zipper said it's shocking no one. Obama's airstrikes have failed to dent ISIS's war machine. And then the Daily Mail said, fierce fighting has been reported on the outskirts of Baghdad, where ISIS militants are attempting to seize control of the Iraqi capital, despite ongoing Western airstrikes against the terror group. Now, ISIS is saying that the airstrikes are having no effect, that they knew Obama was coming, and they vacated the bases and they vacated the buildings. So when you're looking at all this imagery from, the battles and the airstrikes, all those buildings are empty. They already knew about it. Obama says our troops are going into battle, but they're not combat troops. Okay, so they're going into battle. They're going to have weapons. People are going to be shooting at them. They're going to be with these Iraqi soldiers that they're training who are also armed, but they're not combat troops. Well, what are they? He's leaving 10,000 troops in Afghanistan. And then, just before we came on the air, and this will be the last one because we've got to go, Al-Qaeda leader has a chilling warning to the West. The leader of Al-Qaeda's Syria affiliate vowed Sunday that his group would use all possible means to fight back against airstrikes by the United States-led coalition, and warned that the conflict would reach Western countries joining the alliance. In a 25-minute audio recording, Nusra Front leader Abu Muhammad al-Golani warned Western countries against taking part in the alliance in words that echoed those of the late founder of al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden. This is what will cause the battle to be transported to the hearts of your own homes, because Muslims will not stand idly by and watch Muslims be bombed and killed in their countries while you are safe in your countries, he said. The price of war will not be paid by your leaders alone. You will pay the biggest price. Okay, they're blaming the United States and the Western world for what's going on over there in Syria. Let me tell you something, folks. This has been going on 1,400 years ago, longer than there ever was a United States. Okay, this has been going on since Islam became mainstream, I guess, back in the 7th century. But the United States wasn't even thought of. They were fighting each other. They were fighting non-believers. They have been doing this right along. So no matter what we do or don't do, they're still not going to like us. They're not going to be our friends. We're not going to win hearts and minds. If you haven't done it in 1,400 years, I don't think it's going to happen next week. And that's my closing.
Nope.
How about you?
Yeah,
how about you,
exactly
Scott?
right. They started it fighting with sticks and stones, and they're probably going to end it with sticks and stones.
Yeah, well, they've been doing it for 1,400 years. And if that isn't bad enough, Russia says if we start screwing with Syria's administration, you know, you can go in there and bomb ISIS all you want, but you start messing with Assad, then you got to fight Russia. So they're threatening to retaliate too. All right, you got any closing comments for our guest tonight, Scott?
Well, that's about it. You got it wrapped up there, Joanne.
All right, well, say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have for tonight. We hope you enjoyed our show. To everybody who's listening, all you people who called in, I saw you even if you didn't raise your hand, thank you. To our special guest correspondent, JoJo, thank you. And as always, a special thank you to my great co-host, Scott. Thank you again. Stay tuned to PRN. Coming up all week, we have shows. Tomorrow night, you have Denise and Bobby. Wednesday, Freebird's going to be on. Thursday is the Old Bulldog Memorial Show. And we'll be back next week. So on that note, we would like to say thank you, and we love you. And let's hear a little bit of Jimmy Buffett tonight to close us out. Good night, America.